Hey, this is JC and welcome to Small Brick City, where we want to help you build a Lego city regardless of the space you have. In this video, I'm going to share with you some basic techniques on how to create scenes to bring your Lego city to life. A subscriber did leave a comment asking me to do a video on it, but honestly, I can't remember who it was. I did check through the comments, but I couldn't find the comment. So if it was you who left the suggestion, I apologize. Please leave a comment to let me know it was you. In this basic approach, there are 3 things you need in order to create an interesting scene for a Lego city. And the first is minifigs. And I've got a small box of minifigs here ready to go for this video. The second thing you need is context. For a Lego city, the context will be the different buildings and the areas of your city where you'll be setting your scenes. And I like to create scenes that have situational context. So let's create some context with some modular buildings. I've got a half modular building and 2 tiny modular buildings. Together they form a 32 by 32 stud base plate. But this is really just for demonstration purposes. If you have a larger Lego city, you would expand the context and the scenes accordingly. For a Lego city, besides the buildings, you want to include some roads and some sidewalks. And I've got something right here. I've got an expanded set. So what we have over here is a road junction as well as an expanded sidewalk. So this is enough to give us some background to create some scenes. Once you've got your minifigs and you've identified an area in your Lego city that you want to build a scene, you need a couple of accessories. And what I have here is a bunch of small builds, small city builds, and various minifig accessories that I can use to create scenes. So let's see what we can come up with. I distinguish between 2 types of scenes for a Lego display. There's a static display and a dynamic display. A static display means placing minifigs into everyday activities or everyday situations which are quite common and might be quite mundane, and there's no real activity going on. Maybe they're just standing on the street waiting for a bus, or they're holding a cup of coffee that they've just bought. And you want to create your static scenes first and lay them around your city. A dynamic scene is when there's something interesting or an action taking place. There's basically a scenario that is playing out, and those are generally more complicated, and we'll get to that after we create our static scenes. So the first thing you want to do is take a bunch of minifigs and place them into everyday situations. So I've populated this small mini display with various minifigs so that it brings some life to the city display. And we've got some static displays going on, just everyday situations like people walking out from shops. We've got a boy over here who has just bought a piece of pizza from somewhere and he is walking down the road. We've got a funny situation here. We've got this man in a corn suit and a lady seems to be wanting to cut off some corn from his suit. We've got a lady outside the pet shop. She looks like one of the pet caretakers. We've here a boy who has bought some ice cream, minifigs who are crossing the road, and we've got a homeless man who's got a shopping trolley and he's not crossing the road at the zebra crossing, and that's how I've placed a police officer over here. And over behind we've got more minifigs waiting to cross the road. So these are what we call static displays. They are minifigs engaged in everyday activities and basically scenes that you might see on or in a city. So they may not be really interesting, but they at least give some life and some context to the overall Lego city display that you have created. Now, to really make your Lego city come to life, you need to create dynamic scenes. Dynamic scenes are action scenes, and you always want to create them in the context of your city. Let me give you a simple example, and let's go with this ice cream parlor here. So here we have a static display where we have a kid who has obviously just bought his ice cream. So it is not very interesting, but it does establish that this is an ice cream parlor and you can buy your ice cream. Let's add in a small dynamic scene in front of the ice cream parlor, and we'll add in this small minifig which is a girl. She doesn't seem so happy. She's got an empty ice cream cone, and that's because we're going to place this small ice cream accessory piece onto this jumper stud, just like that. And now we're putting a dynamic scene because it looks like she's dropped her ice cream on the ground. So that is a scene I like to create actually in all my Lego City displays. It's just fun, but everyone can relate to it. Kids can relate to this, adults can relate to this, and it's just a nice scene to pop within this particular display. Now let's move on over to this pet shop. So in the pet shop, we do have that animal caretaker. Now instead of this person over here, we could add in an animal. So I'm going through my accessory box over here, and I'll put a skunk because that is interesting, and we can make this lady run after the skunk. So that's a small dynamic scene. Or you can make it funny and interesting. You can turn her around and she's now being chased by the skunk. And if you like, since it's a pet shop, you maybe can open this door and add a whole bunch more of animals. So it looks like they're all chasing this particular animal caretaker. So that is a dynamic scene, and that's pretty funny as well. Let's see what else we can do. So we have a camera shop over here, and looks like this guy either just came out of it. So how can we make this interesting? And that's by adding different small builds, and maybe I'll add this ladder over here. So I'm going to put this ladder directly over the guy because, you know, it's bad luck to walk under a ladder. And to give context for the ladder, let's have this construction guy balanced up here, and he can be maybe repairing the sign or adding something to the sign. So that becomes a bit more interesting. Let's move over to this side of the road over here. So we don't seem to have anything really set up over here. So I'm going to put in a small build. In this case, I'm going to put in my little popcorn stand. And that goes here. And I'll have a guy who's the popcorn guy. He can maybe take over this guy. And maybe he's serving popcorn to someone. And I can get a little box or bag of popcorn, and let's give it to this kid over here. So he can be carrying this popcorn. I'll put him back here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a couple of these yellow flower studs, which represents popcorn for me, and I'm just going to put them something like that. So now it looks like he's been dropping popcorn after buying it. And we can make it even cuter by taking a cat and putting it here. So that's a small dynamic scene, and if you just now look across what we've just created, we've got this leaking popcorn bag with the kid who has dropped the ice cream, we've got the animals chasing the animal trainer, and we've got the guy walking underneath the ladder here. We've created many small dynamic scenes and really made this city display more interesting. And if someone were to look at this display, there are many things to see as they look past this display, because in many Lego cities, when there are no scenes, especially dynamic scenes, someone can just look at the display, they see vehicles, they see buildings, and maybe some minifigs, and that's it. But with a display like that, every few centimeters, they actually see something interesting going on. They can laugh, they can be entertained, and it really makes your Lego city pop and be more interesting. I like to share two more very simple techniques that you can use to create an interesting scene for your Lego city. And the first is to create conflict. This is a very popular technique used in storytelling and script writing. And it basically means taking a situation and introducing tension or potential problem. So here we have a simple example of conflict, and that is the homeless man who's jaywalking across the street with his trolley, and we've got a police officer over here looking at him with a frowny face. So that is potential conflict. But it's still pretty mundane. It is mildly interesting, but not very interesting. So let's create an interesting scene of conflict. And first I'm going to remove these two characters over here, and we're going to use a very mundane item, and we're going to use this newspaper box over here. You might be thinking, well, how do you create conflict out of a newspaper box? Well, let's take some newspaper and let's throw it onto the ground. So just pretend there's a jumper plate over here, so that would be attached, something like that. So now that seems strange. Why is there newspaper coming out from the newspaper box? So that's a little bit of an example of conflict, but let's escalate the situation and we'll make the newspaper box be on fire with these flame parts here. So obviously this is a situation with lots of conflict, but don't worry, we have a hero over here. He looks very familiar, and we're going to give him this fire extinguisher, which will hold in his hand, and we will have him try to put out the fire here. So he's resolving the conflict. But this is a situation of conflict. We have something on fire and we have someone trying to battle the fire. Everything looks very interesting and dynamic. But we can even expand it even more, and that is to think, how did this fire start? Well, there's several ways. Someone could have thrown a cigarette at the newspaper box and it caught fire, or there could be an electrical failure somewhere. Or let's do something interesting. Let's take this guy over here. He's a detective and he's got a magnifying glass. Now, so here's the situation. He was doing some detecting, trying to find clues using his magnifying glass. What he didn't realize was that sun was behind him, and it focused the sun to the point in the newspaper box and basically set the newspaper on fire. That's how it got set on fire. So there we have a scene of conflict that is pretty interesting, and it's quite amusing, especially for someone to see it. So if you are creating a scene of conflict in your Lego city, one very common example is also the bad guys and good guys. So all Lego cities have bad guys who are breaking into banks, stealing ATMs, and then there are cops who are trying to chase them down. Now that is conflict and always makes for a good, interesting scene. The second simple technique is to create randomness that can be explained. In my Lego city, I do like a sense of realism, so everything should be able to be explained. So even if you have, let's say, a dinosaur running across the sidewalk, that is random, but you need to be able to explain it. Maybe you have a dinosaur museum around the corner and this is a mascot trying to draw attention to the particular exhibit. So that makes sense because it can be explained, but it is very random and does make a scene very interesting in a Lego city. Here's an example of randomness that I came up with by random. This is what I call my mobile phone. See? It's two payphones on a flatbed truck. It's mobile. Get it? So this obviously is random. Why do I have two payphones on a truck? Or maybe these are being delivered somewhere, they're being repaired. Or maybe this is an ad for a mobile phone service provider. In any case, it seems quite random, and if I place it onto the road of my Lego street, it does appear quite interesting. It would catch your eye because you'd be wondering, what in the world are those phones doing on a truck? So that's just a very simple example. You can come up with other examples. I gave the example of a dinosaur running on the streets. You could have superheroes running on the streets or having a battle scene. It may seem random, but if you look closely, maybe it's a costume party going on, or maybe a movie is being filmed. Be creative and think of your own random scenes to make things interesting for your Lego city. I hope you enjoyed these tips and tricks on how to create a static and dynamic scene for a Lego city. Let me know which was your favorite scene in this particular video, and let me know if you're going to use any of these for your own Lego city. Do check out a video I did previously on how to create an advanced Lego scene. You can check out the link in the card above or in the description below. And if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and do check out these two videos before you go.